So several places around the world are facing a heat wave that's bringing record temperatures. And when it gets very hot, people tend to get very, very thirsty. What do you do when there's no water? Well, I hope you can grab a glass or a cup of your favorite morning beverage as we gather together today for Mornings with Bishop Robert. I'm really glad you could stop by today. My goal is to introduce people to the Jesus they never knew, and then help them get to know Him and His Word personally and better. So if our time together today speaks to your heart, then let me invite you to like, subscribe, and share with a friend. Well, though it seems to have finally broken, much of the Northern Hemisphere has just been sweating under an incredible heat wave, with hundreds of millions of people trying to survive record-breaking temperatures. Now, this was caused by 5 separate high-pressure systems that sort of stretched across the northern half of the planet. I mean, folks got walloped by stifling heat that seemingly came out of nowhere and just wouldn't quit. The UK smashed its all-time heat records. Heat-induced wildfires burned across many EU nations. A friend of mine in Rome told me at temperatures of over 100 degrees, or 40 degrees Celsius. Some southern cities in the U.S. reached temperatures of 115 degrees, and a city I was visiting was at 113. Now, in the middle of all this, a major water main break in Odessa, Texas, left 150,000 people without water for days. Now, when the temps are in triple digits and there's no water to drink, you begin to learn new definitions for the word thirsty. Getting a drink of water becomes an all-consuming task. Everything else gets pushed aside. You must find water. That's being heat wave thirsty. And it's a picture that drives home the meaning of our verse for today, which says, "My soul thirsts for God." God's love is refreshing, restorative, necessary for life, just like water. No wonder we see so many images in the Bible about being thirsty for God and His presence. In several of the Psalms, King David wrote and used thirst as an illustration for longing after the presence of God. He writes things like, "O God, you're my God, and earnestly I seek you. My soul thirsts for you. My flesh faints for you, as in a dry and weary land where there's no water." David knows how desperate he is for God's sustainment, especially in life's most difficult times. Heat exhaustion occurs when you're exposed to high temperatures and your body doesn't have sufficient water. Along with cramps and headache, an excessive thirst is one of the symptoms. Now, ignore those symptoms, and heat exhaustion can rapidly become heat stroke, which is a life-threatening medical emergency. And interestingly enough, when you transition into heat stroke, you no longer feel thirsty. Now, if left untreated, heat stroke will destroy your heart, lungs, muscles, and brain. In fact, the longer treatment's delayed, the more serious the complications can be, and, well, it will eventually kill you. At this stage, a physician's intervention is needed, and typically IV fluids are required to restore hydration and a proper balance of electrolytes. If you used to want to be closer to God, if you had a thirst for Him and His influence in your life that's diminished or maybe disappeared, that's a life-threatening spiritual emergency. Like a person battling heat stroke, it's impacting you in ways that you may not see. Hey, your heart could be struggling. Your emotions are probably out of control. You may be so overwhelmed by life without God that you feel as though you can't breathe. People without God's love and power in their lives often feel powerless and can't even think clearly. You need spiritual water, and you need it now. Jesus is the great physician of our soul, and he can restore you to the place where you'll say, my soul thirsts for God. Ask him to restore your thirst for God. You know, at one of the religious feasts in Jerusalem that included a ritual of pouring out water before the altar of God, Jesus stood up and cried out, "If anyone's thirsty, let him come to me and drink." God says that when we turn to him, he'll pour his water on us like a dry and thirsty land. And he does it by actually pouring his Spirit into us. He promises to guide you continually and satisfy your desire in scorched places. Those are places without water. He'll make you strong. You'll be like a well-watered garden, like a spring of water, like someone whose waters don't fail. You thirsty yet? Jesus promised whoever believes in him that, as the scripture said, out of his heart will flow rivers of living water. The Bible describes a river in heaven flowing with the water of life, bright as crystal. It's flowing from the very throne of God. And Jesus said to the thirsty, I will give from the spring of the water of life without payment. He gives it freely to us. Are you thirsty yet? You know, when the water main broke in Odessa, Texas, people with wells loaded up their cars and their trucks with water, and they brought them into the affected areas of the city. They gave their water away freely because the people around them needed it. This morning, I'm bringing you water. Are you thirsty yet? Jesus will bring you to the place where you can feast on the abundance of his house. He'll invite you to drink from the river of his love and grace. He's the fountain of life. Are you thirsty yet? Hey, as we wrap up this morning, can I ask you to help me offer folks who may not be thirsty yet a cup of cold water and introduce them to the Jesus they never knew and help them get to know him and his word personally and better? Please like this video to help more people see it. And then follow or subscribe so you and I can get together every day. Hey, I'd love to meet you in the comments section and hear about how our time together touched your heart today. Maybe made you thirsty for God. It's also a great place to leave a question. And one more thing. Share this video with a friend today, would you? Because as you do, you're part of the team touching hearts all over the world with the love of Jesus. Thanks for helping.